You know that feeling, right? That tightness when stress hits, or just the weight of
Or
sadness.
maybe anger flaring up,
Yeah.
or just procrastination when you know you need to do something.
Exactly. We all deal with these negative emotions. Sadness, stress, anger, putting things off. They feel so real.
And often it feels like they're just, happening to us, like we're passengers.
But maybe we don't fully get why they happen, or more importantly, how to effectively manage them.
Well, that's where our source material for today's deep dive comes in. It suggests something quite different, maybe even, well, empowering.
It really does. We're looking at excerpts from a summary of a truly landmark book, David Burns's New Mood Therapy, super influential in cognitive therapy.
Right. And its core promise, as laid out here, is pretty direct. It's about giving you practical ways to see why you feel what you feel.
And then giving you actual techniques to change those feelings.
Exactly. And the source really emphasizes that these are non-drug approaches, using real-world examples anyone can relate to. That makes it feel, usable.
So, our mission today is to unpack the key insights from this summary. We want to grasp that link Burns talks about, the one between thoughts and feelings.
And hopefully walk away with some solid strategies you can actually try out.
We're going to guide you through the main ideas here, looking at the why first.
And then the how. How to use these cognitive ideas to tackle those tough emotions.
Okay, let's jump right in. The first big question the source tackles is huge. Why are we unhappy?
Yeah, because instinctively we blame things outside ourselves, don't we? My job, the traffic, what someone said.
That person, the situation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But the central argument from Burns, presented in this source, is actually pretty radical. It says negative emotions don't come directly from those events.
Wait, not directly?
No, they come from our thoughts about the event.
Okay, so the event happens, then we think about it, and that's where the feeling comes from.
Precisely. The source actually calls this the most crucial insight. Your emotion comes from your thoughts. It's not the situation, it's your thinking about it.
Wow, that shifts things, doesn't it? Puts the focus inside on something we might actually be able to influence.
It does. But then the question is, why do our thoughts make us feel so bad sometimes? Are we just like thinking incorrectly?
Yeah, is it just bad thinking?
Often the source suggests yes. Our thinking gets, well, twisted. It highlights these things called cognitive distortions.
Cognitive distortions.
Basically common mistakes or illogical patterns in how we process things. The source says Burns identified 10 main types.
10 ways our brain kind of tricks us into feeling bad. That's fascinating. Can we see an example? What does the source use?
Oh yeah, definitely. The source gives a really good example. Someone going through a breakup, we can see how her thoughts, full of these distortions, just fuel the sadness.
Okay, let's hear.
So her first thought is something like, I'm a complete fool. He lied to me for so long and I didn't even realize.
Oof. Yeah, that sounds painful.
And according to the source's analysis, that one sentence has 3 distortions packed in. First, calling herself a fool. That's labeling.
Instead of saying, I made a mistake or I didn't see this, she's labeling her whole self.
Exactly. Attaching this fixed negative identity based on one thing. Second, saying a complete fool. That's all or nothing thinking. Black and white.
Right. Either she's brilliant or she's an idiot. No in between.
No nuance. And life is rarely that simple. Third, focusing on him lying for so long and her not realizing that's magnification.
Blowing it up.
Yeah, the source says she's exaggerating the negative, making it seem like this huge catastrophe, ignoring anything else.
Wow. Okay, 3 distortions in just one thought. What else did she say?
Her next thought was, now I know every single word he said since we started dating 3 years ago was false.
Every word for 3 years.
The source points this out as a classic mental filter. You zoom in only on the negative stuff and basically ignore or filter out everything else.
So all the good times, the genuine moments over 3 years, just erased because of the ending.
Pretty much. Her mind is just selecting the false bits now, like wearing, negativity glasses.
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, what was the third one?
The last one mentioned is, I don't believe in love anymore. I'll probably die alone.
Whoa, that escalated quickly.
Right. The source identifies 2 more distortions here. First, overgeneralization. Taking this one bad experience with one person.
And making it a rule for everything, like all relationships, love itself.
Exactly. The source uses the once bitten, twice shy analogy, but taken to an extreme. And second, saying she'll probably die alone.
Uh,
That's jumping to conclusions.
predicting the future.
Yes, specifically fortune-telling, making these negative predictions without any real evidence, like being sure you'll fail a test before you even walk in the room.
Okay, so just in those few sentences, we've seen labeling, all or nothing, magnification, mental filter, overgeneralization, and jumping to conclusions. That's 6 already.
It really shows how these thinking patterns can just take over. The source then quickly covers the other 4 distortions Burns talks about.
What are the last 4 ways our thinking gets tripped up?
Okay, number 7 is disqualifying the positive. This is where you just reject good things. Someone pays you a compliment.
You think, oh, they're just being nice, or they don't really mean it.
Right. Find a way to turn it negative. Number 8 is emotional reasoning. This is a big one. Believing something is true just because you feel it's true.
I feel like an idiot, therefore I am an idiot.
Exactly. And the source specifically links this one to procrastination.
Oh, how does that work?
Well, you feel overwhelmed or annoyed by a task. So emotional reasoning says, I feel this is too hard, therefore it is too hard, so I can't do it. The feeling becomes the proof.
Ah, the feeling justifies putting it off. Got it.
Then number 9 is should statements. Using these rigid internal rules, I should do this, they must act that way.
Always falling short of some ideal standard.
Yeah, and the source says it just creates pressure, guilt, anxiety.
Yeah.
It actually demotivates you rather than helping.
Makes sense. And the last one, number 10.
That's personalization or blame. Taking responsibility or blaming yourself for things you aren't actually the main cause of.
Like the source's example. A parent blaming themselves entirely for a child's bad grades.
Exactly. When there's so many other factors, it just leads to guilt, the source says, without being constructive.
So those are the 10. Labeling, all or nothing, magnification, mental filter, overgeneralization, jumping to conclusions, disqualifying the positive, emotional reasoning, should statements, and personalization blame.
It's quite a list.
It really is. And as you hear them, you might start thinking, which ones sound familiar? Which of these might be driving your own negative feelings sometimes?
Just becoming aware of them, the source suggests, is a huge first step, recognizing the pattern as it happens.
And that leads perfectly into the next part, right? If we understand the why these distorted thoughts, the big question becomes, okay, now what? What can we do about it?
Exactly, the how. And the source highlights some practical strategies from Burns for specific emotions. It focuses on procrastination, anger, and depression linked to needing approval.
Okay, let's tackle procrastination first. I think many of us could use help there. The source mentions 2 great tools. Sounds promising.
They're pretty straightforward, but the source says they're effective. First is the daily activity schedule.
Planning out your day.
Partly. You plan it hour by hour. But the key thing the source stresses is you also record what you actually did in each hour slot.
Comparing the plan to the reality.
Yes. And the point isn't to feel bad if they don't match perfectly. It's to get a clear picture of how you really spend your time. Often you're doing more than you realize.
Right.
And the source makes this great point. Even noting down partial completion of something gives you a little satisfaction boost. It fights that I did nothing feeling.
That small shift from I didn't finish to look what I did start sounds really helpful. Okay, what's the second tool?
It's called the anti-procrastination sheet. This is for those big, scary tasks you keep avoiding.
The ones that feel like climbing a mountain.
Exactly. You take that task the source uses, preparing a speech as an example, and break it down into tiny, tiny steps.
Like, do research, make outline, write first paragraph. Really small.
Yes. But here's the clever bit the source emphasizes. For each tiny step before you start, you predict 2 things. How difficult you think it will be, say 1 to 10,
Okay.
and how satisfied or accomplished you predict you'll feel after doing it, maybe also 1 to 10.
Predicting difficulty and satisfaction, then what?
Then, after you do that little step, you record the actual difficulty and the actual satisfaction you felt.
And what usually happens?
The source highlights this consistent finding. People almost always find the actual difficulty lower than they predicted, and the actual satisfaction higher.
That's brilliant. So you're using your own experience right there on the page to fight back against that it's too hard, it won't feel good distortion.
Precisely. It confronts the emotional reasoning with cold, hard data from your own actions. Builds confidence for the next step.
Okay, that's procrastination. What about anger, that fiery emotion? How does the source suggest we tackle that?
The main idea here is to rewrite the rules,
Rewrite the rules. What rules?
your internal rules, the psychological expectations you have for other people, how they should act, what they should think or feel.
So I get angry because someone breaks one of my unwritten laws about how people are supposed to be.
That's the essence of it, according to the source. When someone's behavior doesn't match your inner standard, your rule, you feel let down, frustrated, and that can easily become anger.
Like the source's example, the girlfriend angry because her boyfriend isn't attentive enough.
Right. The anger isn't just about his actions in isolation. It's fueled by her unmet expectation, her internal rule about attentiveness. The solution offered is to look at those rules. Are they realistic? Are they fair?
And maybe lower the bar a bit,
Hmm.
or at least adjust the expectation.
Exactly. Adjusting your own standards, which you can control, makes it less likely others will violate them, reducing your own frustration and anger. It's about managing your internal world, not just reacting to the external one.
That's a very different perspective on anger. Okay, finally, depression. The source zooms in on one specific cause Burns talks about.
Yes, it mentions Burns discusses 4 causes, but it focuses on addiction to approval as being really common.
Addiction to approval. So needing praise from others to feel okay about yourself.
Exactly. Being overly dependent on external validation and feeling absolutely crushed by criticism or any hint of rejection.
That sounds like a tough place to be, especially since, well, you can't please everyone. Rejection happens.
It really does. So how does the source suggest coping with that pain, especially rejection, which hits an approval seeker so hard?
Yeah, you can't just flip a switch and stop caring.
Definitely not. The source outlines a few strategies. First, accepting a basic truth, summed up in the phrase, each flower enters each person's eye. Meaning, not everyone is going to like or appreciate you, just like people prefer different flowers. And that's okay. It doesn't mean you're flawed, it just reflects different tastes.
Accepting that lack of universal appeal is just normal.
Yes. Second, try not to just keep replaying the painful event or feeling in your head constantly. Avoid dwelling on it 24/7.
Easier said than done, though.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Which leads to the third, very specific technique the source describes. Setting aside dedicated time for the pain.
Dedicated time.
Yes, designate a specific short period each day. The source suggests 10 minutes, solely for processing those painful thoughts and feelings.
Just 10 minutes for potentially deep sadness or hurt.
It sounds short, but that's the point of the structure. During those 10 minutes, you let yourself fully feel it, cry, shout into a pillow, write it all down, whatever helps release it.
Okay, feel it fully, but in a contained way.
Yes. And the really crucial instruction, according to the source, is what you do after those 10 minutes are up.
What's that?
You make a conscious choice to stop focusing on it for now. You shift your attention back to your daily life, your tasks, your activities. The source uses this lovely phrase, let your inner sun rise as usual.
Wow. So you give the pain its space, but you don't let it take over your whole day. You consciously choose to move on after that window closes.
It's an act of managing the rumination, containing it, processing it, but then deliberately redirecting your focus and energy.
It feels powerful, a way to regain some control.
It's based on that core idea.
Yeah.
You can influence your emotional state by changing your thoughts and structuring your actions.
So let's just pull this together, this deep dive into the source material on new mood therapy. It really highlights 2 big things. First, our unhappiness, our negative feelings often aren't just about what happens to us. They're heavily influenced, maybe even caused, by our thinking about what happens, especially those cognitive distortions.
Right. The twisted thoughts are often the real culprits. And second, the really hopeful part. Because thoughts are involved, we can actually do something. We can use these cognitive tools and perspective shifts.
Like the activity scheduling, the anti-procrastination sheet, rewriting those internal rules about anger, or that 10-minute window for sadness.
Exactly. These strategies challenge the distorted thinking and can genuinely change how we feel and react.
They're not overnight fixes, obviously, but the source presents them as real, practical steps anyone can try.
It really feels like it offers a pathway, a way to feel better by working with your own mind, rather than just being swept away by emotions. Understanding these ideas gives you leverage.
It definitely gives us a different lens to view our own feelings, suggesting that maybe the biggest changes come not from changing our circumstances, but from changing our thinking about them.
Which brings us to a final thought for you, the listener, to mull over. Reflecting on those 10 cognitive distortions, which one felt maybe a little too familiar. Does one resonate more strongly with your own pattern?
And thinking about the strategies, the activity logs, breaking down tasks, adjusting expectations, the 10-minute processing time, which one feels like it might be worth trying, even just as an experiment.
Yeah. How might simply noticing one distorted thought today, or trying just one small technique, start to make a difference in how you feel?
It's a thing to think about. We hope this deep dive into the source material has given you some useful insights and maybe some practical tools to explore.